Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Let's see. We better put that up a little higher. Thanks. Good morning, everybody. My name's Sandy Beach. I'm an alcoholic. How you all doing? And I'm glad I made it too. And it's great to be with you. It's been a wonderful weekend, and I've been asked to wrap it up, and I'm on the bill as some kind of a spiritual speaker or something, and we'll see if that happens. But I thought I'd spend about 25 minutes talking about my story, and then I'll talk about what I think spirituality is just from my perspective today. And so very briefly, I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut in the 30s. I know it doesn't look like that could be possible. And I have one sister who has got 29 years in AA up in Connecticut, and so we got real close when she asked me to take her to a meeting. And I have the same feelings that a lot of alcoholics have when they were little, that we'd sit around the table, and my mother and father and my sister and I would feel like I didn't belong in the family, that somehow they were a unit and I just was sort of there and never really felt like I belonged anywhere. And that was, I don't know why I had that feeling. And I think if I went back and listened to my talks in the early years, I would have told you what a rough childhood I had. And now I look back and I had a wonderful childhood. So I think as we make progress on our spiritual journey and we're just happy and joyous and free from the inside out, then our childhood gets happy. It's when we're in a lot of pain and we have to blame something for it that I used to really go after the Catholic Church and having polio when I was little and isolated and abandoned and all those things. And once we start working on the spiritual program, we realize that there's only one problem: being too far away from God. And it manifests itself in many ways, and we can go try to deal with all those things, but the fundamental issue for all human beings is being too far away from God, and we feel it. And I didn't know that's what the problem was, and most people haven't got a clue that that's what the problem is, and we're always looking for other solutions. And so I just had that feeling that I was different, and the church scared the living daylights out of me when I went there. I sat there with my sister, and to this day, she thinks it's the most friendly place she's ever been. She thought the Latin was cute, the nuns were cute, the catechism was cute. She thought all the incense and the service and all that, isn't this fun? And I sat there terrified. And so that's because that's how I saw it. There was the service, and then there was my version of what was going on, and I just scared myself to death with my own story about what was going on. And I was about 9 years old, and I had the first of these spiritual insights where truth is suddenly revealed to you. And I was staring at the crucifix, which was about 20 feet high, hanging from the ceiling. And it was as if it spoke to me, and it said, "Little boy, do you see this?" And yeah. Well, this is what God did to his only son that he loved. Guess what he's going to do to you? Now, no one taught me that, but that became the truth. as far as I was concerned. And so it was very frightening to think about God, so I didn't, and as soon as I could get away from it, I stopped going to church, probably 18 or 19 years old, because it was so frightening. And so that was my baggage, whatever you want to call it, in terms of spirituality. Anyway, I was a pretty good little student and athlete, and my parents saved up their money and sent me to a little prep school outside of New Haven, and I got very high grades. I loved it, very small classes. I think our entire class was 40 people, and we had excellent teachers, and that was about 5 of the happiest years that I remember having. And it was a pipeline right into Yale University in New Haven, which was the hometown school. And I did a lot of construction work in the summertime and steeplejacking work. And I had worked on all the buildings there. And I thought it was just another school. I mean, I didn't see anything special about that place. But when I got there and all the guys came from around the country and they were all rich and famous and they all knew what was going on, I really said, I'm out of place here. I'm in the wrong league with these guys. It was just obvious to me that there was quite a difference between them and me. And I knew during the freshman year on the old campus that someday the dean was going to announce, everyone fall out in the campus, and there'd be 1,000 of us standing out there, and he was going to say, gentlemen, we have found an imposter in our midst. And he was going to point at me, and they were going to drag me out of there because it was clear that I did not belong in that crowd. So it was very uncomfortable to be there, and I hadn't started drinking. My roommates are saying, you ought to be drinking. And I said, no, I'm going to keep getting high grades. I want to try out for the track team. I got all these little goals. And I was at a social event. I mention this every time that I talk, and there was 25 or 30 guys there, and the object was to get to know each other, which I find very intimidating. Actually walk up to someone and go, hello, introduce myself. And so I couldn't. Is this cutting off and on, or is it just me? Huh? Yeah, it is. Okay. It's not me. I'm right against it. So anyway, I found it very difficult to do that, but there was a bar there, so I said, well, maybe I'll have a drink. It makes you feel better. This is the night to do it. I'm 19 years old, so I went over and drank a glass of whiskey and soda and talked to the bartender and waited to feel good. Nothing happened. I had another drink and nothing happened. I got halfway through the third one, and I just decided that maybe it was vastly overrated, all this talk about alcohol making you feel good. And I put it down, I turned to just look back at the room, and to this day I can feel what happened, that those 30 mean guys turned into 30 of the friendliest guys I've ever seen. With their eyes, they were saying to me, we would love to know you. Would you please come over and be our friend? And I'd never felt welcome in the world ever. And that moment, it was just, God, it didn't change me, but it changed the world that I lived in into a great place. And I remember thinking, you should have started drinking in grammar school. This is amazing, the power of this stuff. And so I talked and talked and talked, and then they all left, and I'm still talking to the bartender. And I said, well, if I had 3 drinks, what would 20 drinks do? And so I drank and drank and drank, and then you know what happened. I went and the room spun around, I'm vomiting. I spent the night sleeping in the bathroom on the tile floor, and just a headache, and just, oh God, it was terrible. Next morning, I'm sitting on the edge of my bed and not sure if I'm going to live or die, and the thought occurred to me, do you think you'll drink again tonight? And it was of course I will. This dying is a small price to pay for what I had last night. That was so. I knew that I would be willing to really do almost anything to stay in that world that I found that night before. And I did. So pretty soon the high grades are gone, no athletics. I'm getting in fights. I'm going to jail. The troubles are happening. I almost got thrown out of the university. somehow I graduated by the hair of my skin. I mean, it was that close. And the Korean War was going on, the draft, and everybody had to join the military, and a bunch of us were drinking beer, and somebody said, let's join the Marine Corps. I said, yeah, let me finish my beer, we'll go join the Marine Corps. And went down, and I'm sure that recruiter was just grinning and rubbing his hands together. 6 of us walk in, we want to be Marines, well, sign here, boys, we'll be glad to help you out. And a few months later, I was there, and it was like a very rude awakening. I remember saying to myself, these guys are too intense. What the hell, Relax a little. But it was quite an indoctrination, and anybody who's been through that knows that it does transform you. And, of course, you get in good shape, you're not drinking, and then you become part of something. And I really felt for the first time that I was part of something. That was the Marine Corps and AA. Those are the only 2 outfits that I have felt like I was a part of. And so after about 5 or 6 months, when we finally became platoon leaders, I felt like I loved it. And it got even better when I saw a training movie about pilots, and that looked very interesting. So I went up to the major and I said, what about that flight school? I'd never been in an airplane in my life, but it looked interesting. And so he tried to talk me out of it, but I signed up to take the test, and lo and behold, I made it. And so I got my orders to Pensacola, Florida. I had met a young woman in Connecticut. We got married on our honeymoon, went to New York, and then we jumped on a plane to go to Atlanta and then to Pensacola, the old DC-3 on United Airlines. I got airsick on the way to Atlanta, and airsick on the way to Pensacola, and airsick in my first 6 flights in the old SNJ. And my instructor's going, I don't think you're going to be a pilot. Well, it was motion sickness, and it went away. And then I started doing very well. I would be number 2, number 3 in the class as we went from phase to phase, from instruments and formation and gunnery and carrier work and all that. And boy, I just started taking to it. It was like, this is what I was meant to be. And they were handing out regular commissions, and I got one, so now I'm eligible for a full career, and I'm off on my journey, and it was really exciting. By the time I finished flight school, the war's over. So we're over in Japan, mainly drinking, to tell you the truth, and flying high-performance airplanes, and I have a lot of great stories about some of the things we did, and it just is a high-energy kind of life to be in a fighter squadron, a good colonel running it, and we drank together, and everything was a unit, and I just loved it. And we had a boy there, and then I got transferred to be a forward air controller with the 1st Marine Division, and that was a great assignment. And then we had 2 kids, and then I became a flight instructor, and we're there for 3 years, and pretty soon we had 6 kids. And it looked like I'm doing well. You know what I mean? If you look on the outside, you look at that guy. Now he got promoted to captain. He's done all these jobs. He's still looking good, still a good pilot, and taking flight instructors aboard the carrier, and just doing stuff that looked good on the outside. But on the inside, the disease of alcoholism was rapidly closing in. And when I went to photo school in Pensacola to become a photo pilot, and we went off to Cherry Point during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we were flying the F-8s, and that's when everything crashed. I started having withdrawals in the plane. I would not drink for 8 or 9 hours, and I'd go into alcoholic withdrawal. I was getting real sick and shaking, and I couldn't see very well, and it was a terrible, frightening thing to be trapped in there with me, trying to fly these missions and stay conscious. And I knew I was going to pass out, and it just went, and I kept it up for almost a year with those symptoms because I didn't want to go talk to anyone. They might focus in on my drinking. which would be life-threatening as far as I was concerned. The idea of not being able to keep drinking, it was so essential to me. And I finally did go to the doctor, and I said, I'm having these symptoms, and I almost had to eject the other day because I thought I was going to pass out. Oh, we got to study you. What it is. And we had no alcohol program. There was no disease of alcoholism for anyone to have in the Navy. You had to be diagnosed with something else. And so I was studied for 2 weeks by doctors. What is causing this man to have these problems in these planes? And the psychiatrists are looking at me, the dentist is looking at me, the heart guy, the lung guy, the brain, the scans are doing all these things, and they can't find anything. Now, all they had to go on was a very disoriented guy, lost a lot of weight, covered with clammy sweat, his eyes are bloodshot, his face is all blotchy, his hands are shaking, and he reeks of alcohol all the time. And we go, what do you think it is? I don't know. It sounds like it couldn't be possible, but that was in the 60s, and that's where it was. So they left it up to the psychiatrist, and I was called in for a very formal ceremony, and they read the verdict that I was no longer to be allowed to fly because I had a childhood fear of flying that showed up after 13 years of flying. And I knew that wasn't true, but I had no way of fighting it. There was nothing left inside of me. I mean, I just was living on the edge of one huge panic attack at all times. And so I was sent back to Cherry Point to wait for Headquarters Marine Corps to give me a new specialty. You have to have something that is your specialty. And it took about 3 months, and I got orders to become an air traffic controller. And I went off to Glencoe, Georgia, and I made it through air traffic control school, which is a pretty hard school. And the hardest part was, back then we didn't have computers. You had to write everything out on little metal strips with pieces of paper in for each airplane. And when your hand is shaking, man, that was hard. Anyway, I made it through the school. In my last year of drinking, I was in charge of an air traffic control unit in Iwakuni, Japan. And when I checked in, the senior enlisted men, who really are the backbone of the Marine Corps, took a look at me and just said, "Captain, good to have you here. Glad you're in the unit. Here's your tent, et cetera, et cetera. But, sir, we don't want you personally talking to any airplanes." And I agreed with them that at that point, just making it to work was pushing me to my limits. And so it was a nightmare year of drinking around the clock. I had lost 50 pounds. I had malnutrition. I was drinking vodka and grain alcohol and juice and sometimes soup, but never food. I could not get any food to stay down. I'm very sick, and no one could talk to me. I stopped hanging around my friends, didn't go to happy hour. It was just total isolation. And many years later, in Washington, D.C., we had like a reunion of that squadron that had the air traffic control unit in it. And the guys thought I had died of drinking, many of them. And they were happy to see me, and a couple of them, we had gotten together earlier. And they were talking about how it felt to them at that time to be around me. Because we liked each other. I mean, everybody liked me. That wasn't the problem. They didn't know what to do. And just think about this. This Marine, he was a colonel then, and he said to me, "We knew you were dying and there wasn't anything we could do for you." Now, the Marine Corps doesn't leave dead Marines anywhere. They'll go back to get the dead bodies and lose 3 more people. They just don't. That does not happen. And have a Marine colonel say, "We knew you were dying, but there wasn't anything we could do," shows you the power of the disease of alcoholism, that they just sat there. We just have to watch him keep going down. So it's nice now that there's alcohol programs and there's all these things. So anyway, I made it through the year and went back to Quantico, Virginia to go to a career school to get promoted to field grade and then up higher. And in the school, I had a grand mal seizure, I bit my tongue almost in half. Ambulance came, and again, what happened? This guy, what could be wrong? And I'm off to Bethesda Naval Hospital, where they studied me for about 5 days to see what is happening to him. And then I went into the DTs, and I started seeing things, and CIA was trying to break me with memory tests and freak me out, and it was like Mission Impossible, and they were moving walls and changing stuff so that I would go crazy. And evidently I started screaming and running around, and they got me and put me in a straitjacket and locked me up for 6 months. And so that was my crash. And in that mental ward, AA talked to the head psychiatrist and convinced him that there were some alcoholics in there. And he said, well, maybe, I don't know, or whatever, but they brought an AA meeting, and so that's how I got to my first meeting. Was the corpsman came on to the nut ward and said, all drunks fall in. There was 3 of us. Over to the elevator, down to the first floor, and 2 guys from AA told their stories, and I thought it was amazing. I just thought that this was the most exciting thing in the world, listening to these stories. But I didn't think I was an alcoholic. I'm locked up in there, and I said, this is great. And I remember going, let me get your number. Boy, if I run into a guy with a drinking problem, I have to send him right over there. And I think the redheaded guy, he's dead now, Red F, and he poked me in the chest. Let me ask you a question, pal. They always like to call you pal. And he said, which one of us is going to put his coat on and go out and get in the car and go home to his family? And which one of us is going to put his little blue bathrobe on and go upstairs and get locked up like an animal? And I remember going, boy, they are really rude for just meeting someone. But he really had the thing. So anyway, after a few more months, they were going to send me back to duty. They had determined that. And for about a month, we were outpatients. There was one other guy and myself. And you could go home at night and weekends, but you had to spend the whole day in the ward. And after about a week of that, I decided to have a beer at home to watch a Redskin game, because I had a rule you had to drink a beer while you're watching the Redskin game, and I didn't want to sit there with the TV off. So I drank the beer, and the proverbial nothing happened. And that was just the death knell. I drank the beer and nothing happened. I went to bed. I slept better than I'd slept in a long time. And they said the first drink gets you drunk. Well, it didn't get me drunk. I went right to bed. I feel wonderful. And I got up on the nut ward the next day, and I was so excited, but I couldn't tell anybody. But I wanted to tell somebody, I'm cured. I drank a beer and nothing happened. I'm fine. It's just wonderful. I couldn't even eat lunch. I was so excited about this new freedom from alcohol. And I went home that night and I couldn't eat supper. I couldn't sleep a wink. I just sat up all night thinking about how free I was from alcohol. And that went on for days, probably about till the next weekend. I just was, God, I'm free. That's all I thought about, was how free I was from alcohol. So if you're ever looking for an obsession, there's one right there. I thought all week about how free I was and how I drank that beer and nothing happened. So on the way home, I thought I'd get some vodka. And I remember going in and buying a fifth of vodka. And I think I actually said it to the clerk, I'm getting a year's supply. That's what I thought. And that was gone before the weekend was over, and I got another bottle, and now I had to keep it in the car in the parking lot of the nut ward and sneak out there and get a drink. And they had told me if I ever had another drink, my career was over. And so the following Sunday was December 7th, 1964, Pearl Harbor Day, and I called the AA intergroup And somebody was manning it, or it kicked over to their phone at home. I don't know what. But they answered, and I told them I was down at Quantico, Virginia, and I wanted to join the real AA, not the one that came into the hospital. And they said, we got a man down there. There was one other Marine captain in AA at the entire base. And within 2 hours, he was at the front door, knocking on the door, and came in, and that's my sponsor. Back then, you got a sponsor, but was the guy that came and got you. And he just took over. He said, this is a 12-step call. I talk, you listen. That was the basic thing. And then we got through talking for a couple hours, and then he said, all right, get in the car. And then every day, he'd just go, get in the car, get in the car. I thought get in the car was AA's first step, to get in the car, get in the car. And he took me to Manassas to my first meeting. It was a group anniversary. There were guys with 5, 10 years sobriety. They had a big spread. The food went on forever. And it was a real country place, and they had square dancing and fiddle players and all this stuff. And of course, I had been sober about 4 hours when I got there. And this meeting went on at least 5 hours, so I had 9 hours of sobriety. And people are going, isn't sobriety wonderful? I'm going, no, it's not wonderful. It's awful. And I saw how intense everybody was, and somebody had 5 years, and I went, 5 years? 5 years? People stay here for 5 years. Jesus. If I don't get out of this organization today, I may never get out. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa. And I was trying to run away. It was a cold night in December, and it was misty and probably 35 degrees, and there were no street lights. It was an old Oddfellows Hall, non-flush toilets. You had to hold your breath, go in, go to the bathroom, get out before you had to take a breath. And I was trying to figure out how to run away because they would not stop. They're dancing, and it's just going on. And I felt this hand on my shoulder, and it was an Al-Anon lady. And she had seen the great consternation and anguish that I was in. And her name was Betsy Lynch, and her husband later died of cancer, but we became very close. And she came up and put her hand on my shoulder, and I turned around, and it looked like an angel was standing there. I swear, her face and her eyes. And she said, it's going to be fine. Come on back in. And I went, okay. I mean, it was fine. It was almost like that was it. It's fine. So I just love to thank Al-Anon for that. It was such a loving, wonderful thing. And so I haven't had a drink since. So, that's been 41 and a half years, and I still have the same sponsor, Bill T. He's very ill now, but he's still up in Virginia, and so I've had the great continuity of going through all this sobriety with sort of one anchor there that was always part of my program. I lost my career in the Marine Corps after 2 years of sobriety, and I was dumped out with my 6 kids and no place to go. Had a big resentment about that. I thought if I believed in this new loving God, if I went to a meeting every night, if I did everything I was asked, that bad things shouldn't happen, which is not, they don't correlate. The program helps us through things. It doesn't cause things to do one way or the other. It just gives us the comfort and love and power so that no matter what happens, we can be reasonably happy. And I tell that story for those of you that are new, if you feel like some adversity happened and, gee, you got sober and now it's even worse. Because that was a big deal to lose that career. I really loved it. And I also was broke. I was broke till I had about 17 years in AA. I'm not a great financial wizard. And when you got 8 of you, it takes a lot of money just to stay even. And so it was just money, money, money. And I was complaining at meetings all the time. I can't believe I got thrown in the Marine Corps. And it was just, I sounded like a whining record. And about 3 months after that, there was a little story in the Washington Post that this Marine Corps instruction team from Quantico, which I was on, and if I had had my way, I would have been promoted and been on that team. And they flew into a mountain in Denver and were killed. And I read that and I went, whoa, that makes things look a little different. And I knew that God knew I had just read that, because I'd been giving him a lot of flack. And I knew he saw me read that, and I felt very embarrassed, and I mumbled, well, if you just told me that was going to happen, I wouldn't have been complaining to you so much about all these things. And it began the process of a new relationship with whatever we want to call this, our Creator, our higher power, God. I said higher power for 5 years. That was my choice of words, because I didn't want you to think that I meant that guy on the crucifix or whatever I learned when I was 8 years old. And I think after 5 years, I started saying God because I was on an efficiency kick. And you can say that faster than higher power. And so I've said God ever since. It's just a much quicker thing, and everybody knows what you're talking about. It's your version of what's helping you. But the entire spiritual program of Alcoholics Anonymous is based on that word, God as we understand him. And so it's up to us, but it is the entire point of the program. If somebody were to say to me, what is spirituality? I would say it is a total reliance on God. That's what I would say, that's what spirituality is. It means deriving all of the answers and power to live your life from your higher power. Now, that flies in the face of all of our previous experiences. For instance, when you take flying lessons like I did, you start out receiving help. You have an instructor pilot in the plane with you. And he goes, I'm going to teach you how to fly. And then he's sitting in the back seat, and you're in the front seat in the military. And no, that's wrong. Give me that. Give me the stick. Now watch this. Okay, now, and this goes on. And then comes one day, maybe, I think it was 12 flights later, he said, okay, son, go up by yourself. It was always, you're going to now, even when your father taught you how to ride a bike, with the tricycle and training wheels. Okay, we're taking them off. Here you go. Everything that we did, eventually the point was to be able to do it on your own. You know what I mean? And what our parents said, get out there and stand on your own 2 feet. Everything that we learned, you were trained. I got into sales. Okay, I worked with a salesman. He's showing me, okay, boy, go out there and sell on your own. Oh, boy, all by myself. Hello, you want to buy that? You don't? I quit. Okay, well, then that's... But that was the point of everything until we come here. And in here, you see, once we go from the material world and all its rules, and then we come over into the spiritual world, we have to learn a different set of principles. And this is not one of them, that you get real good at it and then you're on your own.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
You follow what I'm saying? That is not sobriety. You want to become more dependent the longer you're in. Sounds like you're going backwards. You know what I'm saying? In the beginning, I'm relying on my home group and my sponsor, and they're teaching me about this higher power, and everybody's showing me. But in my mind, I'm going, now I get about 10 or 15 years, I'll be out there, man, on my own. And the ego, our self-centeredness, our selfishness can hardly wait. That's right, Sandy. You keep working this. So here we have my self-centeredness urging me ahead in the program. Well, he's fooling me. He's urging me for the wrong motive. He's urging me to work real hard so that I can be spiritual without God. I don't realize that that's happening, but this is what I'm going, yeah. And I'll be giving help. I'll be out there spreading the word. It's like a fire hose trying to put the fire out and it isn't connected to the hydrant. Boy, I'm just going and going. So you can see it's taken me many, many years to realize that the whole point of the program is to become more dependent than I was last year. And more dependent. Now, where do we see that? In the 6th and 7th step. We are constantly trying to turn over more. You see what I'm saying? Instead of ever achieving independence on our own. And boy, is that counterintuitive. I can see looking around the room, people are going, yeah, that's right. There's part of us that wants to get this thing. Well, I'm getting it now. No, you're not. Not if you're saying you're getting it. You know what I mean? There's too many paradoxes here. We don't get it. It happens through us. You follow what I'm saying? And we wake up and then, what would you like done today? Praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. And so, as I look at the process of going through the steps, I'm going to focus today on I'm not going to do the steps or anything. Earl did the most magnificent job on that. That was the package of a lifetime to watch the way he just put that whole thing together. I was just thrilled to sit here and experience that. And especially that part about rarely with the, I know there's 12 and there's 24. Okay, what? Can you name one? No, I can't. Wow. That is a classic. They ought to just package that little baby up and play it for newcomers all over the world, because that's how you feel when you're new. You remember one word maybe and all of that. So I just loved it. So I'm going to talk about a very specific point in the process of the 12 steps. It's a very specific point that I think is one of the main transition points in spirituality. It is the place where I think we go from the material world and all of its rules and guidelines into the spiritual world and start operating under a new set of principles. And so as you can see, as you start out and you surrender and then you realize that you're going to need something other than yourself, and you start doing inventories and making amends and doing all these things, there comes a time, and I remember reading a book about Alcoholics Anonymous, and the author was talking about the spiritual awakening itself. And he said it clearly doesn't occur in the 12th step. I don't know about you, but I just said, well, it's there. That's where it is. So it must happen in the 12th step. It says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. But he said, look at the 11th step. It says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact, meaning you already have it. We're going to improve something, so it must exist when we arrive at step 11. So it must have happened somewhere before step 11. Well, look at step 10. Continue to take personal inventory. And when we're wrong, probably, and you go through all that, I don't see it there. Then I'm out making amends. I don't see it there. Well, maybe it occurs right in between them. Anybody, I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about. What happens at the end of the 9th step? The promises. Now, if you look at those promises, and I brought the big book, I think they're on page 83 or somewhere like that. And the reason because I haven't memorized them, but I want you to think about the verbs that are being used here. We will be amazed before we're halfway through. Now, did you ever go to a therapist and he said, I'm going to do this in a little while, you're going to be amazed? I mean, it's not a psychological term. You'll be amazed. You're just going to think, oh, wow, We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. What does that mean? We bring freedom and happiness in. You go, Larry, I'd like to introduce you to new freedom and new happiness. Oh, I'm glad to know you. We're going to know it. We suddenly are aware that we're happy. There's nothing to make us happy. We are suddenly aware of a level of happiness and freedom. We're not really sure where it came from. You see what they're saying? We'll not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. The past used to make me feel guilty as heck. Anytime I thought about the past, oh God, I don't want to hear about that. Now I'm suddenly looking at it and I'm just going, well, there it is. That's the past, all right. And there's stuff there I could use. Yeah, I think I'll keep the door open on that. Well, where did that come from? Was there some step that said, here's what we're going to do with the past? It just happened. We'll comprehend the word serenity. We'll comprehend the word serenity. You mean like a linguistics lesson? S-E-R, No, that doesn't what it means. It means it's going to suddenly have a meaning for us. This is what serenity feels like. Wow. And we'll know peace. We're going to it's happening to us. No matter how far down the scale we're going, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. I mean, these two at the same, these are like a magician is doing these things. Oh, you got self-pity? Watch this. Whew. Disappear. It's going to disappear. We're going to lose interest in selfish things. We're going to lose interest. I don't know, I'm just bored with me. I mean, what are the odds on that? Just bored with me. What about you? Could I help you? I mean, I think I'll go help that new guy. When's the first time you had those feelings? A new person comes in and they're over there trying to get coffee and you're looking at them, well, I remember this shaking like that, and then they're not there the next week and you go, oh, where are they? When's the last time you ever gave a damn whether somebody showed up the next week? And then halfway through the meeting they show up and they're still sober and part of you goes, yay! And then you look and you go, was that me? Was that me going, yay? Wow, what is that? So you see what I'm talking about, the verbs in here? Lose interest in self. Self-seeking. Here's another magician. Oh, you're having a problem with self-seeking? Don't worry, it's going to slip away. It's out the back, Jack. I mean, it's not directly addressed. Self-seeking, all you do, you just think about yourself. Think about yourself. Don't worry, it's going to slip away. Gone. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people, economic insecurity will leave us. I mean, you see what it's just saying, oh, I used to have that. I don't know where the hell it is. I don't remember dealing with it. I don't remember addressing any of these things. They're just, I don't know where the hell they are. What are we seeing? We're seeing problems being removed instead of solved. We didn't figure any of this out. We didn't figure out what was making us selfish. We didn't figure out why we're selfish. We just noticed it's fading away. We'll intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. Bill talks about the fourth dimension of existence. That's it, the intuitive level. And then here is, in my humble opinion, the sentence that describes the spiritual awakening. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. That is, a spiritual awakening is a awareness. And an awareness doesn't happen to a group. It's not a we awareness. It's a we program, but it happens to individuals. The we program causes us to take individual actions so that we, meaning one person, receives this awareness. And you suddenly go, oh, and it's just an awareness. It just comes over you and you go, this God stuff is real. I have been contacted. Remember they used to tell you, don't worry, son, you'll be contacted. Oh, really? You know, like the space people are going to come down. When you suddenly realize that something is doing for you what you couldn't do for yourselves, that's an awakening. So don't miss it. Don't chalk it up to some coincidence. Well, I just feel better. Really see what that says. So when you look at these promises are absolutely off the chart. I mean, these things are, they're miracles. And then we say, are these extravagant promises? And we all yell back, we think not. What is that? You don't think that's extravagant? Why are we yelling back? This is not extravagant. You know why? God is doing it. This is like a ho-hum for him. So it's not extravagant at all. That if you and I were to try to do that on our own, that would be pretty extravagant, wouldn't it? Cause all that stuff to change. I'm not self-centered and I care about other people. My fear of people, economic insecurity is leaving us, and self-seeking is slipping away, and all that. So there it is. Are these extravagant promises? No, we think not. They're being fulfilled among us. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. So the point in our program that I'm talking about today, where we're moving from the material world into the spiritual world, is right here. When this awareness of what it looks like to work steps that you don't believe in, I didn't believe in any of them. Now I finally made the amends. I went out and cleared up the wreckage of the past, and they told me that if I looked at these steps like the prayer of St. Francis, make me a channel of thy peace. Somehow we want to open up a channel, and the channel is blocked by everything that we do in the first 9 steps. It's blocked by our character defects, by the fact that we haven't made amends, and so we are working all of this to open this channel. And once that opens, we start having these promises take place to the point that we say to ourselves, I am now aware that God is doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. It's time to get rid of the old plan for living and move to the new plan. And guess what it says in the beginning of step 10? We have entered the world of the Spirit. It's about the 4th sentence or the 3rd sentence in the 10th step. We have entered the world. Do you see what that's saying? This is a new ball game, guys. We are now walking. You did all the hard work. You did all the stuff that unlocks the chains of the prison of the material world. Congratulations, you've done all that work. Come on in here. Now let me explain the absolute simplicity of this new world that you came into. Now, and if we ever hear this at a discussion meeting, I'm going to faint. Here it is. Now, the 10th step is how to live life on a day-to-time basis. Now, how do you live a spiritual life? Okay, you ready? Continue to watch, anybody remember this? For selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear. In other words, inventory. Continue to inventory. I'm going to look for all the things that are character defects. I'm going to look for them. Here's a resentment. Here's fear. Here's this. Here's that. What do? We ask God at once to remove them. That's the new plan. What? Now, we just had self-centeredness slip away. We just had this happen. We just have, God's going to do all this. And then we come in here and we go, okay, this is how to live in the future. Anything that happens, ask God to take it away. And what does our ego say? Well, where do I fit in? What do I do in my own life? Nothing. Nothing. So my point is, this is what the spiritual suggestions are. Now imagine if we had a spiritual discussion meeting. This is what it would sound like. Well, the topic today is living a day at a time. Mary, why don't you start? Okay, thank you. My name's Mary. I'm an alcoholic, and my husband just told me last night he's running off with his secretary, and it looks like I'm going to have no money, and it's going to be really rough with the kids. But I talked to God, and he said everything's going to be all right, so I'll pass. Well, thank you, Mary. Joe, what about you? Well, doctor just amputated my leg. I won't be able to work anymore, and I'm not really sure how much longer I'm going to live. But I talked to God, and he said everything's going to be fine, so I'll pass. Do you see, ladies and gentlemen, how boring discussion meetings would be if we followed the program? It would be just. So thank God for our self-centeredness and our egos, that we can come up with something far superior to this trivial crap. Yeah, I'm in a workout program. It's really helping with the anxiety.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom?
Yeah, I'm taking up a little this, and I'm taking a course on that, and I've got my life pretty well managed. And the ego is going, and I'm keeping that guy God out of here because he's too extreme. I mean, you see, I'm making fun of us. I'm making fun of us that have been around a while, that we have this wonderful, simple program, and we're going to come up with anything but that. Anything but that. Now, I'll tell you how important this is. I want to give you the best analogy that I can come up with, okay? We're all practicing alcoholics. Now we're back to those days. We're practicing alcoholics. And we know that an alcoholic, especially a bar drinker, has a whole routine. First, you got to have a bar with a line of credit. You know what I'm talking about? And then you got to have a way to get to the bar, so you make it near your house, like we do with meetings. You know what I mean? My bar is right down there. In case your car gets repossessed, you can still get to the bar. And then in the bar, we got our drinking buddies. We got acquaintances, but we got the little five that are there, and we reinforce one another. It's kind of our home group in the bar. And we have certain activities that we do, certain steps. And maybe we play shuffleboard, and then we sit over here, and then we talk about women, and then we go over here. And there's just a whole routine that goes on throughout the whole thing. So you could say that maybe there's 12 steps to bar drinking. You know what I'm saying? And one of them is when you got a problem, you share it with your buddies. Oh, the boss, you're going to be all right, and all that kind of stuff. But there's one step in that bar scene that is absolutely essential. It's drinking the alcohol. I just want you to imagine the bar scene, and you leave that one out. Hey, I still got my friends. We got the shuffleboard. We got this. Pretty bad, right? Pretty bad. Well, leaving God out of the solution on the spiritual sobriety program would be like leaving alcohol out when we were practicing alcoholics. Nothing is going to happen. Half measures avail us nothing. Any success that we're having without God works to our ego's advantage and separates us from God. I can handle resentments on my own. And I can hear myself saying it. I got through the day pretty much resentful free. I remember when I go to a meeting, I said, I kind of thought today, don't judge people, try, be understanding, do that. And then I report at the meeting that I did a great job. And I have no idea that my little devil is sitting on the shoulder going, you're doing great on your own, Sandy. Keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. Like Earl's a little voice talking there. And he's telling me, you're doing great without God. I know I am. It's amazing how well I'm doing without God. It's just wonderful. It's just wonderful. And it's setting me up to separate further and further. And then all of a sudden, do you ever have that happen? God, everything's bothering me. Just the smallest thing, I'm snapping at my best friends. This is happening. And we have to laugh at ourselves. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to go after our own character defects instead of attacking the world and playing the role of a victim. But we absolutely insist on enjoying life. So to make fun of this journey and to make it into a very happy event is the point of the deal. And AA has managed to do that, managed to make it so that we can make fun of ourselves. I noticed that the guys I hang around with now, the most funny stories, we love to tell funny stories to each other when we get together. And you know what they generally are? Guess what stupid thing I did today? You'll never believe it. I'm standing there and oh my God, we're telling on ourselves. And then the next guy's trying to top it. You think you're stupid? Wait till you hear this story. And then we go through, and then the other thing we do is we go, I can't figure out how to handle this. Could somebody help me? Could you guys please tell me what you think? Wow. I mean, that is just awesome. My higher power thinks that's great. He just looks down and sees 4 people going, could you tell me how you think I ought to handle this? And he just goes, that's wonderful. That is, I call it the running by. In other words, the point of spirituality is to always be receiving help so that then you pass out help, pass it on, not to try and just pass it on. And I think this is one of the healthiest things you can ever do, which is to have a sponsor or a group of friends, and we have what I use is just like a code word. If somebody's at work, and I call them up and I go, Joe, can I run something by you? What that means is, can we have our 45-second conversation? Because that's what we mean. We're going to run. That's what run it by means. And he goes, yeah, meaning I got 45 seconds. Okay. He came in. He said that. I said this, and then this happened. How do you see it? And then he says, I see that you owe him an amend. I do. I don't see it that way. Well, that's the way it is. Okay, thanks. Click. Do I forgive him? And I go over and say, I'm sorry, that was me. Or he says, that other guy was completely out of line. He's wacko what he did. Forgive him. You know what I mean? He's having a bad day. Maybe his wife is leaving him. I don't know what it is, but the guy, that's absolutely uncalled for. Forgive him. He's probably having an awful day. Why don't you go see if he'd like a cup of coffee? Well, that wouldn't occur to me in the condition that I'm in right now. I know, that's why you called me. I'm not disturbed over it, so I'm going to see a much better thing. You see, my point is that spirituality is being plugged in to a spiritual force. That's what spirituality is. The 12 steps are tools. These are tools, right? We talk about them all the time. They're power tools. They're supposed to be plugged in. You follow what I'm saying? You're not supposed to. They're plugged in. Now they work right. Did you ever wonder, you pick this thing that says, go ahead and forgive him. Okay, how does this forgiveness work? Forgive? Most of me, you're not forgiven, I still ate your butt. Oh, I'm not plugged in. That's where forgiveness comes from. God, can you please allow forgiveness to flow through me over to him? Oh, now I feel it. So my point this morning is to try and get us to understand that it's wonderful that we go out and extend the hand of AA. But you don't want to be out there unplugged, because you'll get drained in a second, and you'll find that the help that you're extending might be an ego trip. You find that the help you're extending might be to get a good reputation in your group. All kinds of strange motives can appear when we're not connected to our higher power and operating as a servant. You see what I'm saying? We're just, what would you like me to do today? Rather than, what could I do today to look good? I don't know about you, but that one crosses through my mind all the time. I mean, so I have to inventory it with other circuit speakers, other people that have been around a while. I said, do you think I'm thinking up these clever things just so people come up and say, that was clever? Part of me probably is. So I want to talk to people about that. I want to get feedback on that. Anyway, I'm at the end of the time. I focused in on just that transition between steps 9 and 10. If you take a look at 10, you'll see how what we have is a daily reprieve contingent on our spiritual condition. Everything is leading us to say to one another, we have to stay plugged in to our own Creator. Then we're really doing this the way the book suggests. We got to keep God involved in everything. Sometimes they go, well, what are the 12 steps? Well, the first step is surrender. The second step is this and confession and helping and inventory and all that. If you can't remember all those things, here's the simple way. First step's all about God. Second step is all about God. The third step is all about God. The fourth step is all about God. They're all about God. And the entire point of being alive is to seek God. That's what we can laser focus our lives. And if we do that, it is the most amazing journey a human being can have. If you're new, I wish you the best of luck. You're in a wonderful environment out here to have a happy sobriety. God bless you all, and thanks for asking me up here.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308, or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
He is probably the smartest man in AA. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.